Hello and welcome to the World Cup Fantasy Podcasts on the FPL Scope channel. We are through to the quarterfinals. Well, we're not through to the quarterfinals, but the teams that you can see on your screen are through to the quarterfinals. It was a pretty eventful round of 16 with, mostly the favorites going through, but one major upset with Morocco beating Spain after a penalty shootout. We were left with these 8 teams playing against each other. We have on the left side of the bracket, we have Netherlands against Argentina and Croatia against Brazil. And then on the right side of the bracket, we have England against France and Morocco against Portugal. With me today, I have Kevin, as always, and I want to hear his thoughts as well about the round 16. Most of it is what we predicted last week when we did our predictions for the entire World Cup. The only difference is we had Spain going through as well, all the favorites going through. But it should also be noted that we had Portugal beating Spain in this upcoming quarterfinals fixture. So for us, it's still looking sort of similar to what we expected. But yeah, anyways, with that in mind, anything that stood out to you in the round 16, Kevin?
I think I was actually quite amazed that Japan took Croatia the distance. I just knew that, sadly, when it came to penalties, that Croatia have the experience and have the players to sort of take them past that stage. It was just heartbreaking to see just how, because I feel like it's a bit of a stretch or a bit harsh to say that the penalties were terrible, but the penalties were terrible, just like
Yeah.
how it was for the Spanish players. I expected Morocco to sort of keep them at bay, but I just didn't quite expect them to go as far as they did. So a lot of pleasant surprises. Something that didn't surprise me, I guess, in terms of the round of 16 was the fact that Portugal played better without Cristiano Ronaldo. We've been touting that for a while that they probably will play better, and they did 6-1 with the cameo from him. And yet, the guy who got even less minutes than him, Rafael Leao, scored and even did, his trademark Ronaldo chop. And can't believe he did the gritty at 6-1, but here we are.
Fair enough. Obviously, I said last week I was hoping that Japan would go through for as long as they could, well, until they meet Argentina, but it just wasn't meant to be. And like you said, the penalties, that's one of the things that has surprised me, just how terrible the penalties have been. We've been talking about penalties ever since we started talking about football back when we met like 10 years ago. And you always said just like, no nonsense, run up, shoot it high and hard, and you get a goal pretty much. And you see all these penalties are just low to the side, not even that hard, and just simple save for the goalkeeper if he just guesses correctly. And also just the goalkeepers. I feel like Unai Simon he went super early every time, so it's just really easy to see and score on him. And that's what we've seen with players like Jorginho and Bruno Fernandes and stuff. And Neymar, as we saw with Brazil, they can just see where their goalkeeper is going and then just shoot it the opposite direction. So like the really good penalty takers are doing really well with penalties, but all the other guys that usually don't take penalties, they really struggle in the World Cup with just a bunch of terrible penalties, really. That's kind of surprising, but that's an advantage for Croatia. We saw it in the last World Cup as well, that they know how to go through after extra time and after penalties. And once again, they reap their rewards. Then, as you said, Ronaldo out and Portugal looking like a completely different team, like way better, way more exciting. Gonzalo Ramos breaking through on the big stage, scoring 3 goals. I mean, he's a highly touted striker, but that was a huge breakthrough for him. And none of us really got to reap the rewards of that because that was the final match, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
pretty much, unless you had Ronaldo or someone else, that's the only way you could have had him in. Because, for example, if you had Morata, who played in the game prior, at that point you wouldn't know that Ramos would start over Ronaldo. So if you had Morata, you probably sold him to get, I don't know, probably, I don't even know who you'd get, but probably either Ronaldo or someone cheaper. I don't know, some other forward. But yeah, so none of us really got the points from him. I'm assuming maybe one of you guys listening did, but yeah, that was like the highest score so far as well, with a hat trick and an assist as well. So just a huge match for Gonzalo Ramos, really. But like I said, none of us had them in our team, and I'll go straight to my team, how I did today, or this match day. And I finished on 87 points, which is, well, it's a huge score at least, so that's really good. A lot of people had huge scores, so it's not as significant as it might look, but I had a really good match day, well, mostly because of Mbappe. I switched the captaincy from Messi to Mbappe, and Mbappe got 15 points compared to Messi's 7. That's the line I've been putting myself on this whole World Cup. I've had, if my first captain has 7 points or less, I'm going to switch, and if he has 8 points or more, I'm going to stick, and Messi ended up with 7, so that's why I switched to Mbappe. Obviously, it's dependent on which player is playing, but Mbappe against Poland, it just made sense. Maybe it's not as easy this upcoming match day, which we'll see pretty soon. I'll just take you through the rest of the team. The first mistake is in goal. I had Noppert for the first match for Netherlands, and they didn't keep the clean sheet against the USA. They looked really good and beat them, but Noppert didn't keep the clean sheet. He got 3 saves, so he got 2 points, but I was going to swap from him to my backup goalkeeper, Unai Simon, but I just simply forgot about having an extra goalkeeper when the Spain match came along. So I put Jordi Alba and Daniel Olmo on the pitch. Alba got 6 points, got a clean sheet before they went out on penalties. Olmo did nothing really, got 3 points. But yeah, I forgot to do Simon, so I lost out of 4 points from that, annoyingly. And the other mistake I did was that I had Sandro, and once again, I didn't realize that he didn't start in time. I was out shopping, making food, all that types of stuff, and then all of a sudden the match just came along. I was sort of, because the Croatia-Japan match was before that match, so the extra time thing sort of made me feel like I had more time, but then the match already had started and I hadn't checked if Sandro was playing. I most likely would have brought in Guerreiro for Portugal. I mentioned him last week. It was in my thinking, and of course he scored. Didn't keep a clean sheet, but he scored, so that's another couple points, like 7 or 8 points lost, I think. So I probably should have eclipsed 100 points, but just wasn't meant to be. But yeah, Marquinhos and Hernandez, 1 point each. Both of them conceded pretty late for Brazil and France. But then one of the biggest heroes this match day was Denzel Dumfries, who we both had. He scored and assisted twice, got 14 points. Beautiful from Dumfries. We've had him, both of us have had him throughout the World Cup Fantasy this time around, and we've all been patiently waiting for him to explode, and finally he did. So those of us who kept faith in him got rewarded, 14 points. Like I said, Dani Olmo did nothing, and yeah, not much to say about that really. He had a pretty poor game. Spain had a pretty poor game offensively as well. Didn't really create much against Morocco, who have been a really good defensive side. And then we have Phil Foden. He got 9 points, which shows really good, but initially, I had Bukayo Saka, but once news broke out that Foden was starting, I swapped from Saka to Foden. Saka obviously scored the second goal that Foden assisted, so Saka got 10 points. So I just wasted a chance to lose 1 point from that. So even though I'm happy with Foden getting 9 points, I would have gotten 10 points if I had just kept Saka. So kind of annoying. Then the only offensive Portugal player I had was Bruno Fernandes, and he only got an assist. He played really well. Once again, he's the engine for that team, but he ended up with only 1 assist, so 5 points for him. He had some key passes as well, which gave him the 5 points. Lionel Messi, 7 points. Yet another good match for him. He's one of the players of the tournament so far, along with Mbappe, who obviously scored and did what he wanted against Poland, especially later on in the match, and ended up with 30 points as my captain. And then finally, I had Richarlison, who, well, Brazil just absolutely dominated their matchup and won easily, and Richarlison got a goal. Really nice, one of the best goals in the tournament so far, with the seal dribble and then the really quick play with I think it was Thiago Silva or Casemiro, I can't even remember, passing it.
It was Marquinhos and Thiago Silva.
Marquinhos,
yeah, and Thiago Silva got the
assists. So yeah, just really well taken goal. That's pretty much it. I also had David Klaassen, who got subbed off pretty early, got 0 points. Enzo Fernandez got 0 points, and then obviously Sandro, as I mentioned, who didn't even play because he was injured. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my team. I don't know if there's anything you want to comment on. I think you have a lot of the same players, but Is there anything?
Yeah, you goddamn jinx. Fernandez scored an own goal because you had him in your team. So I'd like to point out that it would never have happened had Matthias just picked someone else. God damn it.
Enzo Fernandez, obviously, he
Yes.
conceded that goal,
Yes.
which for me was actually decent because I didn't have a Argentina defender, so it was actually
Yes.
fine for me that Argentina conceded. Since I didn't go with, I was thinking about going with Acuna, most likely. Otamendi got an assist, so he got some points anyway, which we'll see when we come to Kevin's team,
Mhm.
which is pretty similar to mine, but some differences. But yeah, you can just take us through your team. It's just kind of similar to me, but you can note the differences as you go along.
Yeah, so I did what everyone did, and which a lot of people have done from the start of the whole World Cup and for fantasy, which was having Noppert and Dumfries. Dumfries absolutely went ham as we expected him to eventually do one match day, and then he did, got 14 points. And crazily enough, someone who's in our mini league managed to yeah, captain him, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So those two combined for 16 points. Obviously, Dumfries got 14 out of the 16. So for me, it was just a easy bet to put Allison in goal because I figured they'd keep a clean sheet. And of course, just like France, they conceded out of nowhere very late. And I guess, to be fair, South Korea, comparatively to Poland, were actually playing pretty decently and deserved to score. Whilst like with the Poland game, I felt that they basically had zero chances and then randomly got a penalty just so Lewandowski could stat pad. Classic Lewandowski Bayern Munich times stat padding. I'm not going to say that he's stat padding now because he's a Barca legend in the making, but yeah. Anyways, so went with Otamendi just because I felt that he could maybe do something really stupid or like get a cool goal or something like that. I just had a feeling Otamendi would do something, and then he ended up getting the most accidental assist I've ever seen in my life because he completely miscontrolled the ball that led to Messi's nice little dribble and classic finesse shot finish. So I was very happy and very content. Obviously, yeah, because I doubled up on Brazil. Marquinhos conceded, even though he was pretty great in that game. And then Cordialba kept the clean sheet. You know, I don't know what to say, really. I was expecting Spain to score. They had plenty of chances. Sarabia hit the post at the very last second as well, which could have, to be completely honest, I kind of wish he just crossed it instead. I don't understand why he went weak foot across goal when he hasn't even been playing that much and all this type of stuff. But fair enough, you got to go for it. And then obviously he hits the other post when he takes the penalty. Fucking loser. Anyways, um, but yeah, so Spain kept the clean sheet. But I'm very glad I didn't go completely insane with the one team I didn't expect to get knocked out, but very luckily I only have Alba in my team rather than tripling up or quadrupling up on Spain. Um, I have Foden who got 9 points, Fernandez who got five. Foden, two assists, was brilliant in the game. I think in like FPL world and fantasy, we would have been laughing because he would have been more points than Saka, but obviously because midfielders get so much for scoring, yeah, it
Mm.
ended up being a sour note. But at the same time, it let us sort of mess around with the team here and there and etc. So I don't really care. I'm more happy that Foden got two assists and got the 9 points than he got one less than Saka. At the end of the day, he still made it up in some regards, I guess. Fernandez, very unlucky to not do more in the 6-1 win, but like you said, the metronome got them ticking. Pretty sure he must have like a lot of pre-assists. So basically got the pass before the pass. And both him, Juan Felix, and Ramos were standout players for me.
Yeah.
All wonderful and great. And yeah, Felix especially, I'm very tempted by him. It's just the fact that everyone's a forward, so he can't really afford anyone at this point. Or rather, you have to allocate everything towards potentially the triple up of PSG attackers, right? Mbappe got 15 points. I just didn't want to twist from Messi, and also just simply because of the De Bruyne sticker twist that I did once upon a time, which bit me in the ass. And
Mm.
I mean, I think you had a captaincy change that was Messi who had scored, and then
To
someone else who.
Mbappe, who scored more.
No, 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 no. As
Yeah,
in the past.
yeah,
In the
the
past,
De Bruyne game, match day one.
yes,
Because most people had Mbappe as the 12th man,
yeah,
I had Mbappe in my team simply because I knew that I wanted him as captain. So I think that's what was happening there. That I had Messi first and switched to Mbappe, and that worked out.
yes. But then there was also another one where you did a sticker twist, and it ended up with someone who didn't do something. Am I not remembering this correctly? In one of the other match days, did you
Maybe.
have a captain that failed? That's basically because
Yeah,
you
I'm pretty sure I
twisted from
did.
someone.
I'm pretty sure I did, but I think my first captain failed that time as well. But I'm not 100% sure. I
100%
can't
sure. Yeah.
remember.
Either way, like for me, I totally understand what you mean with the seven being enough to twist, but I've seen it backfire before when I had Messi uh, for 12, and then I changed it to De Bruyne for one. I don't even remember. Like he only got 2 points, I think, in the end, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which,
Now he ended up with 4 points eventually because they added the key passes
yeah,
super
of
late.
course.
So you got
But
8 points from him as captain, but still.
yeah. And Richarlison is Brazilian, so of course he did something pretty great. Got an assist, got an goal, and living life. But it's just a question of whether I'm going to switch that to Neymar. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Before we do that and look ahead to the next match day, we're just gonna take a quick look at the league table for the FPL scope. We have our
Mm-hmm.
own mini league, and as you can see in the top left corner, if you're watching YouTube, you can join this mini league by going into the game and putting in the league code. I'll just say the league code for you now if you still wanna join, and the league code is RB73AUTS. Last time around, before the round of 16 match day, I said that I know you guys watching who have done well so far. You can easily just join the league and take the number one spot, and that's exactly what someone did. Engelthal, I think the team name is, which is currently the number one spot with just about 32 points ahead of me. But yeah, like Kevin said earlier, this team had Dumfries as captain, so 14 points times two. Not as much as Mbappe, but still, I think he had Julian Alvarez and some other players that I didn't have that made him get more points even this match day. And obviously, he had more points from before. So he took the top spot from me anyway. Well, Midnight Mule, second place, also got more points than me this match day and eclipsed me at the top of the leaderboard. So yeah, I got some ground to cover. Obviously, as you can see, I am 32 points behind, and that's about the same that I'm ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
You're down there at ninth place, but 30 points is not that much. It's just basically one captaincy. I think that's the thing with the remaining fixtures. Most people will have the same teams because obviously you have less and less players to choose from. So it's more about the captaincy choices, which will be very interesting going forward. So that's something we'll discuss when we look at our teams. It will be really interesting this match day, even. But yeah, any comments on the whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I'll obviously have to talk about someone who's placed 10th, which is the real Clay Cassius, which is a good friend of ours, Ali. The crazy thing about Ali is he probably, and if he was just more aware or just more clued in the sense of like just being ahead of the sort of the transfers and be like knowing exactly all the rules, he'd be ahead of both of us because there was multiple times he subbed off someone who got a clean sheet or something like that. Like for example, he subbed off Giroud after the first France match against Australia. He subbed off Van Dijk when he kept a clean sheet. He didn't start Koulibaly in the match where Koulibaly scored, and all this type of crazy stuff. I see I only like 14 points ahead of him and something like that. And he should have been like 40 points ahead of us and stuff like that. So considerations, you could easily, obviously, still finish above me, and I think you probably will with current standings and stuff. But yeah, I just had to point it out because he was just like, "Oh, I'm so close," and then I see the stuff and I tell him what to do as well, like in between the episodes and stuff like that. Just saying like, "Oh, when he's asked me about stuff, obviously I'm not going to sabotage. I tell him like, do this, do that, sub this person out, sub that person out." And yeah, obviously life gets in the way, and this game doesn't have the best windows for transfers and stuff like that. Like you have to really be like, okay, this player's starting, so I have to swap him and all this type of stuff. So obviously, if you're someone like Ali who's got a job that's got you moving around and stuff like that, it's just always going to be difficult. But he's a faithful watcher of ours, so obviously I had to point that out.
Yeah. It's also should be noted that I said earlier that it was pretty much impossible for any of us to have Gonzalo Ramos in our team because all our three forwards would have played already. But that was not the case for Ali's wife, Farah, who had Cristiano Ronaldo. So she could have swapped out Ronaldo for Gonzalo Ramos, but she didn't. So sadly, missed out on some points there as well. But
Yeah,
that's how it is. You gotta stay clued in. I think that's pretty much well. It has cost me some points as well, as I just showed you with my team,
yeah,
with the goalkeeper change and the defender change that I could have done. But yeah, you really have to be on top of things to do well in this. So I think I've lost out on. I think it's about just like 15, 16, 17 something points, just about now. So if I had those points, I would have been closer to number one. But I still feel like I have a chance. I still have the power captainship left. You've used that, so that's a huge advantage for me because I can just use it, then get the top score that week. But still, you might get in, like for example, if you get in Neymar and I get in Vinicius Junior and you captain Neymar and I do power captain, you still might get more points than me if Neymar just has like one of those super match days like Ramos just did.
yeah.
So even with the power captainship, it's not a complete certainty that I would beat your captain score, but
No.
considering we have pretty similar teams, as we'll get to, I probably will gain some more points from that. But going into next match day, this is my current team. There's been a couple changes. I said previously that I didn't have any Argentina forwards or defenders, back in the last match day, but as you can see now, Acuna is in there in defense. So I basically sold Sandro and I sold Alba, and I brought in Acuna and Rafael Guerrero. I said I was going to bring in Guerrero, and I finally have him in my team, so let's see what I can do against Morocco. But yeah, I also brought in Marquinhos, or I have Marquinhos still, but I brought in Acuna. And I also keeping Dumfries and Noppert. I expect Argentina to beat Netherlands, but it's going to be a pretty tightly contested game, so I'm going to give them both a chance and then see if my bench can come in for them if they don't perform. So in goal, I've also swapped goalkeeper because obviously I had Unai Simon. So I swapped to Costa, the Portuguese goalkeeper. Morocco haven't scored that many goals, so it makes sense for him to come in. He's also the cheapest goalkeeping option left out of the bigger teams. Well, apart from Morocco, who has Bono, who's been amazing once again, a really good goalkeeper. But that's besides the point. But yeah, so that's pretty much my defense with Marquinhos, Acuna, Dumfries, and Guerrero. And then in midfield, done another transfer. I brought in Lucas Paqueta. I had to sell Dani Olmo, so Paqueta made a lot of sense. He plays for West Ham, which is my favorite team. And he plays just amazingly for Brazil. And he was a big part of them being so good in their last match. He just has a really good understanding with Neymar and all those other guys for Brazil. And he plays, for West Ham, he plays sort of as a number 10, but for Brazil, he plays alongside Casemiro in the midfield. And it's just a really standout partnership, those two. Really fun to watch Brazil in general. But yeah, I'm keeping faith in Enzo Fernandez. Hopefully he doesn't score an own goal this time. Hopefully he can get some offensive contributions. But I also have some money left to spare, so I could swap him to someone else. But at the moment, there are not that many midfielders that I'm really interested in. So I might just keep him and see what he does. And I have some good players on the bench. If not, Bruno Fernandes, got to keep faith in him. He's on penalties with Ronaldo on the bench. So he just makes a lot of sense against Morocco. I still have Richarlison, but I might upgrade him to either Neymar or Vinicius Junior. I still haven't decided if I wanna what I want to do with those guys. But to do that, I'd have to. Well, I'll get to that pretty soon with my bench. But yeah, just keeping on. I have Messi. Currently, I have him as the first captain. That's the question that I'm having in my head. Do I want to go with the Brazilian captain and then either Messi or Mbappe, or do I want to go with Messi and then Mbappe, which I've done every match day so far? It has worked out pretty well for me with Messi and then Mbappe. But just Brazil against Croatia seems like the biggest opportunity to get a lot of points offensively. So I'm tempted to switch to one of the premium assets, most likely Neymar, since he's on penalties. And well, I could also, to be fair, I could use the power captainship, which is also something I'm considering. So then I'd have Neymar or Messi or Mbappe as potential captains, or even Bruno Fernandes as potential captain. So I think that's actually what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the power captainship, and just see where that leads me. But yeah, I also have Mbappe, like I mentioned. Then in goal, Costa, like I mentioned. I still have Foden for England. That's one of the other midfielders I might bring in for Fernandes is Saka, if I don't do the Neymar move. I mean, Richarlison could still score. He's been amazing this World Cup, and and it's the starting strike for Brazil. So, but that's something I got to decide between Richarlison or Neymar. And the way I can get Neymar rather than Richarlison is that because I already have some money in the bank because I sold Unai Simon for Costa, that saved me some money. I sold Dani Olmo for Paqueta, that saved me some more money. I already had some money to spare. I think even Acuna is way less than Alba as well. So I've gained a lot of money from those transfers. So if I do, rather than getting Rabiot, who I currently have in, if I get Casemiro and just quadruple up on Brazil, then I have enough to go straight from Richarlison to Neymar, and still have a free transfer left in case someone is benched or something like that. If Guerrero doesn't make it to the Morocco game, for example. So that's another option that I have. And then finally on the bench, I have Hernandez. Yeah, as you can see from the bench, the England-France game is the final match. So that's why I have those guys benched, except for Mbappe, because I don't have enough players in the other teams to leave Mbappe out as well. But yeah, the team is listed in terms of which matches are played first. So as you can see on the left side of my team, I have Brazil because they play in the first match this time around. It's on Friday. They play in the midday match, and then in the evening it's Netherlands against Argentina, and then midday Saturday is Portugal against Morocco, and then Saturday evening is the France-England game. So yeah, that's pretty much my team and just this match day. What are your inputs, Kevin? What do you think I should do if you had my team? Would you bring in Neymar and Casemiro, or would you bring in someone else for Fernandes, or would you bring in a different goalkeeper than Noppert? Like, what's your suggestion for my team?
I mean, I guess all depends on if you want to go like the favorites route, because Argentina and Netherlands is so tightly contested that maybe instead of Noppert, you'd get a goalkeeper from one of the teams that you deem is going to win and, or go further. And then you look ahead for the week after being like, okay, that's also a good matchup. But if you think about it, all the next matchups look terrible in the sense of like on paper, all of them are pretty difficult if
Mm.
it goes according to our predictions. So I think it's perfectly fine. I think in terms of Neymar versus Vinicius, I think Neymar is the obvious pick out of the two, personally, just because whilst I think Vinicius is great and all that type of stuff, it's the allure of having a penalty shooter in your team, and Neymar is their penalty shooter, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously can, I mean, I mean, Vinicius can become eventually as good as Neymar, but I still think Neymar is just different gravy, right?
Yep.
He is just one of those sort of guys who has it written in the stars that he's just gonna do something crazy. So for me, I think out of the two, it feels like a more obvious pick, but that's also why he's a more premium option anyways. So if you're looking to make $1 million moves throughout the match day and just, you know, save some money here, save some money there, and go up and down and stuff like that. I think it's better if you then have something in the bank rather than going Vinicius or going Neymar and then not being able to do this changes accordingly because it could be like that Paqueta's out or something like that and etc. Then you'd have to make a bunch of moves here and there. So for me, I think I think the Vinicius Junior sort of like what's his price? It's not. I don't think it should be anywhere close to what Neymar is. Right?
It's
It's like
it's the same.
two.
It's 10.5 from both of them.
That's crazy. Wait, what? I thought he was like 8.5.
No, no,
No,
no.
no, 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 no. You go Neymar. I'm sorry. You go Neymar. Yeah.
I mean,
100% you go Neymar.
you say that, but last game I thought Vinicius looked better out of the two. Neymar obviously scored a
Yeah, yeah,
penalty,
yeah.
but Vinicius has been throughout this tournament really. He's been
Oh
really
yeah.
good.
Oh yeah.
So I don't feel like it's a foregone conclusion. I have the money anyway, so it doesn't really matter to me. Well, you could say that I could do Fernandes to someone, maybe Di Maria if he's available, but I don't know. I'm still a bit unsure. Richarlison also. What do you reckon with Richarlison compared to these guys as well? Like,
I mean, the thing we have to also consider now is like Croatia are bullies physicality wise and all this type of stuff. So that gets taken into consideration, which is why I think out of Vinicius Jr. and Richarlison, that Vinicius Jr. might be a better pick because I think his pace counters their physicality better than Richarlison does. Not to say that Richarlison is a slow guy or anything like that. I think physicality wise, he can match them. But just having that one extra step against these defenders, I think Vinicius Jr. might be and Neymar are better picks because they're just sort of players who'll get clattered in the box and then will have a pen, which is then why I think Neymar is a good choice because I feel like if there's a game where Brazil can get pens, and not to say that because of sloppy defending, I just think it's due to pace that's why it works out that way. I think Richarlison's chances are good in any match. That's sort of his whole tournament, this whole thing. But again, I think it's kind of difficult compared to some of these previous matches with players and stuff like that to predict how they're going to play simply because honestly to me this is Brazil's first real threat,
mm-hmm.
real test and all this type of stuff.
Yeah,
I feel that a lot of teams have coasted to where they are now. I feel this is the same thing with France. Not to say that Poland were an easy game, but come on, Poland's not England, and I think it's the same with England. All these English fans that are like, oh, we got what it takes to beat France. You do, but you've also not faced anyone of France's sort of caliber until now. So I think a lot of these matches are not as predictable as before, and therefore it makes it much more of a headache for us to pick out the players. But if we are to pick players out, I think it's sad to say. I mean, I'm always going to pick Richarlison simply due to price, and that lets us have more freedom elsewhere. But for me, I would rank the Brazilian strikers or forwards as Richarlison last, Vinicius Jr. second, Neymar first, even though I totally buy your assessment of Vinicius Jr. looking better and everything like that. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to scoring the goals and all this type of stuff, Neymar's more of the guy to do so.
yeah. I think, like you said, it's the toughest test so far with Croatia, who've been really good, especially defensively.
Yeah.
Guardiola has been one of the players of the tournament. He's also left-sided centre back, so he's most likely going to be closer to Neymar than he's going to be close to Vinicius. So you got to take that into account somewhat as well. But yeah, Brazil still, they could still destroy Croatia. We know
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
have
yeah,
that
of
in them.
course.
They could win
Yeah,
5-0 still, and that's the thing. If they're leading 3-0 and it's getting closer to an hour of playtime, I feel like Neymar is more the player that they rest rather than Vinicius, considering
yeah.
Neymar's age, injury history,
Sure,
all
sure,
that
sure.
stuff. He just came back from injury, so I feel like he's more susceptible to rest in case they have one of these major matches. Considering I'm going a power captain, that's probably what I'm hoping for because at the moment, most people have Richarlison anyway, and they don't have those higher priced Brazilian attackers. But
Sure.
I might just try to convince me into doing like the more unconventional thing, which I'm prone to do. But so yeah, I still got to figure out if I want to do Neymar or Vinicius or Richarlison. If any of you guys watching have a comment on that, you can easily comment on this video on YouTube down below. I'd like to hear from you if you have any suggestions, or if you want any tips for your own team, or if you're confused about who Fernandes is for Argentina. It's not Di Maria, it's not Bruno Fernandes, it's Enzo Fernandez, one of the other breakouts in this World Cup. But any query you might have, any question, any comment, please comment down below. But that's about it for my team and my issues with my team. Let's move on to the final part of this podcast, and that is Kevin's team. You can just take us through it once again, and then I'll have some comments afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I've got quadruple Brazil as well, just because I think obviously from, let's call it, left side A side and right side B side, like I think Brazil, I don't want Brazil to reach the final if Messi's still involved, of course. Obviously, I want Argentina to go all the way, which is why I have a bunch of Argentinian players. But yeah, I think Brazil, like the game against South Korea, again, it's tough to say because I think South Korea, as well as they did and everything like that, are not Croatia and are not, these next teams that they can face and all this type of stuff. But at the end of the day, they still looked really good. And like you said, Brazil have what it takes to beat the living snot out of Croatia. Maybe Croatia wins 3-0 and, whoa, of course, anything can happen in football. But if we're going based on the tournament, based on form, based on everything, quadrupling up on Brazil doesn't seem like the worst idea, especially if Netherlands is the team that does go through between Argentina and Netherlands. I think it's even more of a reason to have Brazilian players, just because I don't think Netherlands attack well enough. So, yeah, so I think Allison doesn't feel like the worst shout. I thought he actually had a pretty decent game, all things considered.
He was amazing.
Yeah, which is irritating to say as an Evertonian, but it is what it is. I think Marquinhos is what I've always told you, even in Champions League fantasy, that like he's just up for a random headed goal, and I think Croatia might be one of those sort of games where they have to score through a set piece or something like that, and that's why I feel like he could be a nice little pick.
Yeah, on Marquinhos as well. He's been really close to getting an assist in several matches. Like he chested it down for the Pedro, I think, in the final match. He's
pissed
had a
off.
couple. Yeah, he was super pissed off afterwards. So he's had a couple of chances to get assists, and then his teammates have let him down. So I think he's a huge pick. Just like, well, it's not the same as Dumfries, but I feel like Marquinhos will eventually score if you just put faith in him. There's a couple matches left to do that if Brazil go through. They still have 3 matches left to play. If they go through this quarterfinal stage, they'll have 2 matches left after that anyway, because they'll either be in the bronze final or the final.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's going to score in one of these games. So having him he's only 5.5. It's not even 6.0.
Yeah.
I think that's a no-brainer. So yeah, just keep a lookout for him. He's one of those other guys that might turn out to be a super power captain, because all of a sudden he scores 2 goals and then he's like the super power captain for me. But yeah, that's Marquinhos. Go through the rest of your team.
Yeah, so Otamendi, as I mentioned before, beautiful vision in 3022, 1,000 years ahead of us, because that was the most bullshit assist I've ever seen, ever received. But
put it on the platter for Messi.
Yeah.
Easy goal for Messi after that.
Yeah, Otamendi did all the hard work, so happy with that.
It reminds me of it's slightly more impressive, but it reminds me of Busquets just letting Messi get the ball against Real Madrid back in the day.
Messi just did everything.
Scoring.
Yep, that's best assist he's ever done. But the thing about Otamendi though, which is super encouraging, is I don't know if you remember, but he's done several long balls behind the back line and stuff like that, which is obviously as a fantasy owner of him is super encouraging. I mean, obviously, I think Acuna is the better pick out of the two. It's just the fact that if things look shaky, Scaloni always takes out the fullbacks, which
Yeah.
seems like the strangest thing. Oh, Dybala hasn't played a single minute, but yeah, let's throw in this guy. Let's throw in Tagliafico. Like I
Montiel
don't
is terrible.
yeah, like I don't
Yeah.
understand why Dybala is not getting to play at all,
Yeah.
but here we are. Scaloni's winning, so maybe I should shut up and not say anything. But that being said, I was at Argentina, Italy in London, and who came on with like 6 minutes to go and scored? Paulo Dybala. So,
Yeah.
but either way, I think Otamendi is a fun pick because he just plays it every minute. This is doomed to fail, but he hasn't gone like many yellows, so that's also a good thing. And to be fair, I've noticed that a lot of my players don't seem to get any yellows, and now I'm just advertising and manifesting that they do. But yeah, I think it plays a part into why I picked them and why and minutes is an important thing too. I have Dumfries because Dumfries could stupidly score and I hate it, but he's in my team. So just need to keep him in case they go through. Paqueta, uh, like Mathias said, looked great. Metronome, he has the potential to outscore a lot of the Brazilians in that sense because I just think he's world class. So
Mhm.
yeah, it seems like an obvious pick and was frustrating when he didn't play and all this type of stuff too. But here we are, he's playing and he looks good. McAllister's one of those guys that I might upgrade to Di Maria if Di Maria's fit. So just keep an eye out for that. I think McAllister's great, generally speaking. Obviously, we know he's a dependable pen taker for Brighton. He's never going to take a pen for Argentina unless it goes to a penalty shootout, which we know that Argentina and Netherlands have done in the past. So, yeah, just keep an eye out. Just for McAllister's sort of attacking prowess. But again, if Di Maria starts, I feel like to me it's a no-brainer to have
Yeah.
Di Maria's assisting ability and all this type of stuff. And he's kind of the knockout king for Argentina as well. Like he always
Yeah.
comes up with a big moment or a big goal. So I think it'd be a perfect swan song if he manages to score against the Netherlands as well. Fernandez again, part of the 6-1 demolition, should have had more points, but here we are. Still think that if he's going to be playing, like Matthias said, is going to be on penalties, still going to take all the set pieces as well. And yeah, I think if this is the game where Morocco, like this is the game where Morocco gets dismantled because of just how good the Portuguese attacking team has been as of late. Credit to Santos, who I still think is a big idiot, but fair enough, man. He got 6-1 and Ramos went insane.
Mhm.
So maybe he isn't getting things wrong, but I still hate the fact that Liao is not starting. But
Mhm.
credit to Liao, takes it on the chin. Is a super sub simply due to his pace as well. So I sort of do get it, but at the same time, I just think that he should be him and Bernardo Silva with Bruno Fernandes and Ramos would be absolute nightmare fuel. So I don't get it. But Otavio's played well as well. So
Mhm.
whatever, I guess, at this point. Um, Foden looked good, 2 assists. If he's someone who's got that X factor out of the England squad, it's definitely him, especially now that we don't know the current situation for Raheem Sterling of whether he'll be back in time for the game or whether he will return to the England squad. I mean, it's a horrible situation to have to be a part of. I mean, obviously, this has happened with a lot of football players in general, but it's been happening more to an alarming rate as of like a year ago. And this year, you're hearing cases of this all the time now. Aubameyang was one of the cases, and it's just shitty. Especially, it shouldn't be happening in the first place, and then now in such a extreme scenario and the highest pressures of the World Cup, and then for that to be happening at home, it makes perfect sense. I would,
Mhm.
I hate the fact that there's been criticism towards, and not obviously from sane people, because I have to point that out. If this happens to anyone's family, you give up everything and you go home and you make sure that
Yeah.
everything's okay before you do anything else. By God, the fact that I've seen criticism about this, it's just incredible. He's letting the country down. How? Like he has to deal with this, and
Yeah.
and all this type of
That's
stuff.
usually the case with Sterling as well. He's always getting the brunt of the criticism as well. So, but just strictly like, of course, like you said, I agree with all of that. He should definitely take care of his family and stuff. And it's not like England have like, it's not like they have lesser talent
Of
in the
course
squad
not.
of course as well. Like they're benching Rashford already. That's
Yeah.
like one of the places that they can really afford to lose someone anyway. But like even if it was Harry Kane, who's way more vital to what they do in terms of just being like the number one guy at his position, even if it happened to Harry Kane, I would totally understand if Harry Kane went back as well.
Yeah, of
To
course.
like that's I can't imagine like one of the like that must be one of the worst feelings with burglars coming in with armed robbery. So yeah, it makes sense for me for him to go back as well. So yeah.
With all that being said, yeah, I just think personally, I don't fancy England as much as England fans fancy themselves. That might be a weird thing to say, but it's true. I do think that there is a possibility out of a million possibilities that England win this match against France, but at the same time, I don't really see it. I do think France are leaky though. They do concede randomly in all games. So could Foden be a part of that to like a Harry Kane finish? Yes. That's why I have Foden in the team, and that's why he remains for the time being the only English player that I have. Going into the attack, Richarlison, great. He's performed, and I'm glad that I got to be a part of the steel sort of keepy ups goal that he did. And obviously, as a Evertonian, this is the guy who kept us from the championship, basically. So obviously, back him. Will I upgrade him to Neymar? It's looking likely, but will I do it in will I do it considering how much I'd have to nerf the team? Maybe not. It all depends. It just all depends on just a feeling sort of thing. That's sort of how I've been doing a lot of these transfers, and some of them have worked out, some have been absolutely terrible. I had a great feeling about Kevin De Bruyne. Whoops. So, uh, but yeah, rest of the attack, it's the rest of the PSG trio, I guess. Well, duo out of the trio, Messi. I'm gonna keep Messi regardless of. Will I keep Messi even if he gets knocked out? That's a
Probably.
lie. But probably, you know what? I probably will stop playing if Messi goes out. So I'll potentially captain Messi, or even will captain Messi against Netherlands. Mbappe is just a no brainer. The fact that I even considered game week 2 without him and all this stupid shit. Nope. I should have just had him from the get go. And yeah, he's just proving everyone who's sort of said like he's fallen off and all this stuff like straight to hell. Like, yes, he had a terrible Euros and all this type of stuff, but he's
Yeah.
proven to everyone that, yep, there's a reason why he is the sports director of PSG. Uh, in regards to the goalkeeper, I might change Nopper to Costa as well, or potentially even change Allison to one of the other boys, simply because it is always good to sort of branch or spread it out a little. I just think that Brazil are going to kick so much ass, which is why I've got so many. I don't actually trust Noppert at all, to be fair. So might have to, especially after the comments he did about Lionel Messi. So eh, every time you do and say stupid, Sillison did this last time those two guys faced off, and Argentina ended up winning the penalty shootout. So stop it, stop it, just stop it. Just wait until the game and then chat the shit. I get it. Football players have to have some belief in them and all this type of stuff. So fair enough and whatever. But I hope Messi scores a hat trick. In regards to the defense, again, because I want to get Di Maria, Upamecano might become someone super cheap just so I can do McAllister to Di Maria. But I just think France's chances are pretty good, regardless if they make it to the semis and if they then meet either one of those guys in the bronze match or whatever. I think loading up on France players isn't the worst thing as Brazil because we both believe that they're going to be the finalists, and Rabiot's looked good regardless of him not getting the fancy points lately. He's always constantly there and is I wasn't aware of this, but he's apparently a good header or got a good header to him because they constantly aim for him for
Mm.
these chances. And he just about missed the chance which went over the bar against Poland and all this type of stuff. So yeah, I'm encouraged by them. Hernandez looks unplayable at times. Now the question I have to myself is just whether maybe I should look at CH and not uh, overlook Morocco, even though we both have and probably not going to end up with a Morocco player. If there's anyone, maybe Hakimi could be someone
Hmm.
because I know that Hakimi does take penalties and free kicks for them. So who knows? I could potentially bring Hakimi in for one of these guys. And if I have the balls, I'll definitely consider CH as well because I think Portugal can concede. And if it's if they are, it's going to be one of those two. That's it.
Yeah. Just some quick comments. Just the Upamecano thing. I feel like it's a bit risky to go with the double up in the final game because obviously you can't swap them out for someone else afterwards.
Yep.
So to double up in the final game, you have to really have faith in the team keeping a clean sheet, and I just don't think France keeping a clean sheet against England is that like certain. So I feel like there are some options you can go with there. You could either super back Argentina and have Acuna as well as Otamendi, or you could go Guerrero if he's fit to play.
Yeah.
He's also a bit cheaper, so especially at the same time that you have Foden playing offensively, and seeing as it is the final game, you have to play Foden against Upamecano and Hernandez anyway.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in a pinch in that regard because you can't swap them out afterwards. Like
Right.
for example, with Netherlands against Argentina, Otamendi and Dumfries, you can play both of them. One of them's going to concede most likely, unless it's 0-0 in penalties. Then you can just swap out the guy who conceded and didn't get the points afterwards. But seeing as the France-England game is the final game, you can't do the same thing.
Yes.
You can't back two horses at the same time. So I feel like you should sort of diversify the defense with Upamecano to someone else because it should be noted you don't have a Upamecano currently in your team. This is just like your suggested squad. You haven't done the transfer yet. I think you still have Alba on your team, but you obviously have 5 transfers to do before the match day ends.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things you can do. But yeah, McAllister, you mentioned he could score goals and stuff. Penalties for a penalty shootout, he's good, but you don't get points for penalty shootouts. And
Of course, no.
obviously, he's also a really good free kick taker. But you know, Argentina, Messi's going to take every single set piece when it comes to free kicks and free kick shots and penalties. So unless Messi gets injured, God forbid, then McAllister wouldn't be on set piece duties. But I still think McAllister, he's scored already from open play, so he could still do that. And it should also be noted with Argentina's midfield that it looks like Rodrigo de Paul is going to miss the game. So it's most likely going to be Paredes coming in his place
Yeah.
to play as the DM role, but he has sort of a different. He's more of a deep lying playmaker compared to de Paul, who's more like a all around box to box type of guy who can cover a lot of space and stuff. So yeah, that might affect McAllister. I don't know exactly which way. I don't know what you think about that. Do you think that will benefit McAllister, or do you think that will be a detriment to him that Paredes comes in for DePaul?
I think it sort of doesn't matter, to be honest. Like, I don't think that should affect his playing time. If it's anyone who's gonna get affected playing time, is Papa Gomez because obviously Di Maria will
Yeah,
take his spot. I think McAllister has played well enough. Not to say that Papa Gomez played poorly or anything like that. It's just he's not Di Maria, sadly, and he's being played out of position anyways. I think McAllister should be fine. It's just whether Argentina really have to be on the ball to be doing well against Netherlands. But considering Netherlands' attack, it should favor Argentina. But the thing that a lot of people seem to fail to notice about Netherlands is that they are outrunning a lot of their opponents. De Jong is doing some crazy shit in midfield. The fact that DePaul isn't in the game is a big, big miss. But if Di Maria is playing, I think Argentina's chances are looking much better.
Yeah, for sure. It's also on the topic of goalkeepers. You mentioned that you might swap out Allison or you might even swap out Noppert. Like I said last week, you got to make sure that you have one keeper from each side of the bracket,
Yeah.
just in case one of them gets knocked out. Also, just because when they face each other in the semifinals, if you for example switch out Noppert to, what would it be? If you switch out Allison, no, what is it again? But yeah, that's the case now even because Netherlands could go to the semifinals and then Brazil go to the semifinal and then they meet each other. So
Yeah.
you can swap goalkeepers that way. So swapping one of the goalkeepers is potentially a good idea to get like a
Yeah.
Portuguese goalkeeper, Costa, or if you want to go with Uriz or I don't know what other options. England, probably not going to go with Pickford, but he's an Everton guy, so maybe. Maybe not
No.
against France. But yeah, I think Costa makes sense as a goalkeeper. I'm just basically telling you to get the same team that I have.
But
Just
it's
keep that in mind that I have a bias in terms of you having the same team as me is good because I'll
yeah,
keep you behind me.
but obviously a lot of these teams are gonna be generally speaking
Yeah,
similar because we're getting to the template point of the tournament where you want to just make sure that you have the correct players rather than taking a bunch of risks because it's all the same pool of players that you have to pick from and favorites essentially. In all games, they're pretty much favorites, unless you are some crazy guy and it's like, oh, El Nasiri against Portugal gets a hat trick and you somehow had him, then kudos to you. But it's not going to be like that. Pretty much everyone's going to have Messi, Mbappe, and a Brazilian striker, unless they feel that Ramos is going to go absolutely crazy or and all this type of stuff. So for me, I think it doesn't really matter with the goalkeeper, anyways. In case Allison keeps a clean sheet, it doesn't really matter,
yeah,
anyways. But yeah, I think obviously I'm gonna have backups on backups. That's what this whole thing is about, really. So yeah, I think generally speaking, you're right. It's obviously best to have teams for or players from both brackets and to have goalkeepers from both brackets. But yeah, I don't think I was ever gonna keep Nothbert simply due to the comments, mainly due to the comments, and mainly because it makes obvious sense that next game week, instead of doing the transfer then, I can just save it and do it now because it's just an obvious transfer anyway. So
yeah,
it's not like I'm gonna go minus on it in that regards.
yeah. And you also have the advantage of well, you'll get to see if Allison keeps a clean sheet or not first, so you
Yeah,
can wait with that
exactly.
transfer before. Like if Allison keeps a clean
Yeah,
sheet,
yeah,
there's no reason to upgrade Noppers, so you can wait with that transfer.
yeah,
If Allison concedes against Croatia, fair enough. You can swap Nopper to Costa, for example.
yeah,
I think that would be my preferred goalkeeper combo if you're on a wild card or something like that. I think Allison and Costa makes the most sense. They are on opposite ends of the bracket. They have the easiest match with Croatia for Brazil and then Morocco for Portugal. I think Allison is the goalkeeper that makes the most sense throughout the tournament because Brazil are the favorites to go to the final, seeing as they have Croatia first and then another match, or they're at least the favorites to go to the semifinal, which is the important part for the players you have because players that go out and get knocked out in the quarterfinal will not play any more matches, but players that go through to the semifinal will have the semifinal and then either the final or bronze final left to play. So it makes sense with Alisson going all the way. Because obviously, even if you have Costa, then if Costa and Alisson do the best job and keep clean sheets all the way, then they'll meet each other in the final anyway, and you don't want that either. So you're sort of stuck with one of the losing goalkeepers in one of the matches, unless some team gets knocked out from doing 0-0 and then losing the penalty shootout. You still get the clean sheet and they go and don't face the other goalkeeper. But I don't know, that might have been convoluted. But anyways, I feel like you're in a good position with Alisson as the number one goalkeeper, seeing as he is in the first match. You can just see if he gets a clean sheet and then swap him out, really. So that makes a lot of sense. I think, if you have a transfer to spare, Alisson in as a goalkeeper makes a lot of sense. He was really good. I think he's been the goalkeeper of the tournament so far. Just on that, as we're getting closer to the end of the podcast, we'll obviously be doing another one. I'm not exactly sure on the date. This episode is coming out now. You're watching this probably on the Thursday before the quarterfinals start on Friday. I'm not exactly sure when we'll post the next one, but we'll definitely have it before the semifinals are played. But also, on the topic of Alisson potentially being the best goalkeeper of the tournament so far, after the World Cup has ended, we're probably going to have a wrap-up just talking about the World Cup in general, picking our separate best starting 11s from the World Cup, player of the tournament. We will discuss all that and obviously discuss the final and bronze final at the end when we basically go through World Cup fantasy at the end. But in the meantime, I hope you have a nice time. It's getting closer to Christmas for those of you that celebrate that, or Hanukkah if you celebrate that, or whatever. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all that stuff. Kevin, any other parting thoughts before we leave it?
Fuck Noppert.
Fair enough. That's quick and concise. Until next time, see ya. Bye-bye.